Commander Ilara Voss slams her fist against the malfunctioning life support panel as warning lights bathe Sentinel Station Omega-9's command center in crimson. 3 years of solitude at this forgotten outpost have taught her every quirk of the aging station. Outside her reinforced viewport stretches the vast emptiness of the void, the uncharted darkness beyond human space that the Omega Line was built to monitor. 17 stations once formed this defensive perimeter. Now only Ilara's remains staffed by human hands. The others stand as silent automated sentinels, victims of humanity's inward retreat and budget reallocations. The transmission from Earth Command blinking on her console brings news she's been dreading. Her recall is official, the final human presence on the Omega Line to be terminated. As she reluctantly initiates shutdown sequences, the proximity alert screams to life. Something massive emerges from the void, a shadow where no shadow should exist, moving with deliberate purpose directly toward human space. The automated defense systems register no match to any known signature in their database. Ilara's hand hovers over the transmission button to Earth Command, then diverts to the weapons systems instead. Someone needs to investigate, and no one else is coming. The station's ancient targeting computer whirs to life, struggling to lock onto the anomaly. Ilara bypasses safety protocols, rerouting power from non-essential systems to boost the sensor array. The object's silhouette resolves slightly, not a solid mass but something more complex, like interlocking segments shifting in impossible patterns. It moves against the stellar currents, defying the physics of normal space travel. Computer, calculate trajectory and estimated time to human territory. Ilara commands, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Trajectory indicates intercept with Helios colony in approximately 43 days. The AI responds in its emotionless tone. Helios colony. 8 million settlers, mostly families seeking a fresh start away from Earth's overcrowded cities. 43 days wasn't enough time for a proper evacuation, even if Earth Command believed her warning. Ilara's quarters feel smaller than usual as she gathers her personal effects. 3 years of life condensed into a standard-issue duffel bag. The cracked holographic frame shows her graduation from the academy, her parents' proud faces frozen in time. They had opposed her assignment to the frontier, arguing that humanity needed to solve its problems at home before venturing further into space. Now it seemed their isolationist philosophy had become official policy. The station's observation deck offers the best view of the anomaly. Ilara presses her palm against the cold transpose, feeling the subtle vibration of the station's faltering systems through her fingertips. The retrieval ship won't arrive for another week. Protocol dictates she should complete shutdown procedures and wait in stasis. The smart move would be to follow orders, file her report, and let Earth's bureaucracy handle the potential threat. But something about the anomaly's deliberate movement sends chills down her spine. This isn't a random cosmic phenomenon. It's approaching with purpose. Ilara returns to the command center and locks the blast doors. With practiced efficiency, she overrides the shutdown sequence and initiates a full diagnostic of the station's defensive capabilities. Dust shakes loose from rarely used console panels as dormant systems come online. Omega-9 was built when humanity still believed in the importance of frontier defense, equipped with weaponry and countermeasures that newer stations lacked. Computer, begin continuous monitoring of the anomaly. Alert me to any changes in trajectory or composition. As the station hums back to full power around her, Ilara sends one last transmission to Earth Command. Potential Class 1 contact detected at coordinates 227 to 800 and 93044. Investigating further. Delaying scheduled departure. Will report findings. She doesn't wait for their inevitable order to stand down. The stars seem colder through the viewport as Ilara settles into the command chair, calibrating the long-range scanners for a more detailed analysis. Earth had forgotten the frontier, but the frontier had not forgotten them. Whatever this thing was, it would reach human space eventually. The only question was whether humanity would have any warning when it arrived. Ilara would make sure they did, orders or no orders. Some duties transcended command structures. Some threats couldn't be ignored, no matter how inconvenient their timing. The last Sentinel of the Omega line begins her watch. Earth Command's instructions echo in Ilara's ears as she maneuvers Omega 9's sensor array toward the anomaly. Abandon your post immediately. The anomaly pulses with energy patterns unlike anything in human records, broadcasting a signal that ripples across multiple frequencies. When Ilara sends the preliminary scans to Earth, the response is dismissive bureaucratic jargon, classifying it as cosmic background interference. Alone on her station, Ilara reroutes power from life support to the quantum computers and begins decoding work that would normally require a team of specialists. Sleep-deprived and surviving on stimulants, she makes a breakthrough on the 5th day. The signal contains perfect prime number sequences and precise stellar coordinates. As she maps them, her blood runs cold. The coordinates match every human settlement, outpost, and colony, even classified military installations. The alien transmission contains a complete map of humanity's presence in the galaxy, accumulated with terrifying precision. Worse still, her enhanced scans now detect not one but dozens of anomalies, all converging on the Omega line like predators sensing wounded prey. Ilara transmits her findings to Earth Command one final time before their communications blackout takes effect, knowing her message will likely be ignored. She hasn't seen another human face in 3 years, and now she might be the only one who knows humanity is being hunted. Priority override denied. Communications restricted per Admiral Kessler's directive. The computer announces flatly when Ilara attempts to bypass the blackout. She slams her palm against the console. Admiral Kessler, the bureaucrat who'd been systematically dismantling the Omega line for years, redirecting funds to internal security measures against imagined threats while ignoring the real dangers beyond the frontier. The stimulant injector hisses against Ilara's neck as she administers another dose. Her reflection in the darkened view screen shows sunken eyes and 5 days of stubble, but she can't spare time for personal maintenance. Not when her enhanced scans reveal the full extent of the approaching swarm. Computer, extrapolate convergence point of all detected anomalies based on current trajectories. A holographic display materializes above the central console, showing dozens of objects moving in perfect synchronization across the stars. Their paths intersect precisely at the Omega line, forming a net that will engulf the entire defensive perimeter. Ilara runs a trembling hand through her unkempt hair. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Strategic. The decoded signal plays on loop through the command center speakers, a haunting rhythmic pattern that somehow feels both mechanical and organic. The mathematical precision suggests an intelligence far beyond human capability, yet there's something almost musical in its structure. Computer, compare signal pattern to all known communication protocols in the database. No match found in civilian or military databases. The AI responds. Ilara's eyes narrow. Check classified archives. Authorization VOS Omega 793. The console flashes red. Access denied. Classification level exceeds current authorization. Of course. Another of Kessler's directives, restricting frontier commanders from accessing the very intelligence they needed to do their jobs effectively. The stimulants keep fatigue at bay, but do nothing for the gnawing hunger that's been growing for days. Ilara forces herself to leave the command center long enough to retrieve nutrient packs from storage. The station feels cavernous around her, designed for a crew of 12, but inhabited only by 1. Her footsteps echo through empty corridors as she passes the sealed quarters that once housed her colleagues before budget cuts forced their recall. Back at her post, a new alert catches her attention. The transmission has changed, subtly at first, then dramatically. The signal now pulses in direct response to Omega 9's passive scans. They know they're being watched. They're adjusting their broadcast accordingly. Ilara's fingers fly across the interface, isolating the new patterns. The coordinates have shifted. No longer showing human settlements, they now display a sequential map of approach vectors directly to Omega 9 itself. The message couldn't be clearer. They know exactly where she is, and they're coming for her specifically. The retrieval ship is still 3 days out. Earth Command won't listen. The other Sentinel stations stand empty, their automated systems useless against an intelligence that can map an entire civilization undetected. For the first time in her career, Commander Ilara Voss feels truly alone. But as the signal changes again, a sudden realization cuts through her exhaustion. They're not just broadcasting coordinates anymore. They're attempting communication, responding to her scans with mathematical equivalents, creating a primitive dialogue. Whatever these entities are, they want to talk. And Ilara might be humanity's only chance to listen. The lead anomaly resolves into a massive vessel of interlocking crystalline structures that shimmer with internal light. Ilara brings Omega-9's outdated weapons online, but hesitates before firing, remembering the signal's complexity. Instead, she transmits the next sequence in the mathematical pattern they sent. For 17 agonizing minutes, silence reigns. Then the crystalline ship reconfigures itself, forming new patterns that pulse with light in direct response to her transmission. After hours of exchanging increasingly complex mathematical sequences, rudimentary communication establishes. They call themselves the Collective, a hive consciousness spanning thousands of individual bodies, each connected through a shared neural network. They've observed humanity for centuries from the shadows of the void, fascinated by our contradictory nature. Their sudden approach now isn't an invasion but a warning. They've detected what they call the extinction wave, a consuming force that devours all independent life forms. The Collective assumed humans had detected it too, and were retreating from the frontier as a strategic response. When Ilara explains that humanity simply lost interest in defending its borders, preferring to focus on internal politics, the crystalline ship pulses with what she somehow recognizes as alarm. Then you have left your species defenseless against annihilation. They communicate. The wave approaches, and the Omega line is the last barrier between it and your homeworld. Ilara's targeting solution remains locked on the crystalline vessel's central mass. One command would unleash Omega-9's remaining arsenal. Not enough to destroy the alien ship, but perhaps enough to disable it. Her finger hovers over the command key, trembling slightly from stimulant overuse and exhaustion. But something about the vessel's response to her mathematical transmission stays her hand. The way its crystalline segments realign to mirror her patterns suggests not aggression but communication. Computer, continue monitoring all weapons signatures from the alien vessel, Ilara orders. Alert me to any energy buildup consistent with offensive systems. No weapons signatures detected, the AI responds. Energy patterns consistent with communication systems only. Ilara takes a deep breath and opens a direct channel. She transmits the next logical sequence in the mathematical progression they've established, adding a simple greeting in 23 human languages. The crystalline ship's response comes not as words, but as images projected directly into Omega-9's holographic display. Complex, shifting patterns that gradually resolve into recognizable symbols. Mathematical constants, astronomical configurations, and finally, a representation of DNA, human DNA, alongside something similar but fundamentally different. They're showing us what they know about us, Ilara murmurs, and telling us what they are. The next sequence of images tells a story. The Collective's crystalline ships moving through space, encountering other species, sharing knowledge, then a darkness spreading across star systems, worlds going silent. A wave of nothing, absence, death. Ilara's console translates the mathematical sequences underlying these images into approximations of human language. We are collective. Many bodies. One awareness. We observe. We learn. We preserve. Working feverishly, Ilara refines the translation algorithms, pushing Omega-9's quantum computers to their limits. The communication becomes clearer with each exchange. Danger approaches from beyond, consumes all independent life. No defense exists once detected. You named it void. We name it extinction. A new image appears, a map of human space with the Omega Line highlighted. The abandoned defense perimeter suddenly takes on new significance as the collective explains its purpose, not just to monitor for alien threats, but to serve as humanity's first and last warning system against something ancient and implacable that periodically sweeps through the galaxy. We believed you detected wave approaching. Believe retreat from frontier was strategic. Preparation for resistance. The truth hits Ilara like a physical blow. No, she transmits back. Our retreat wasn't strategic. We abandoned the frontier because of politics, budget concerns. We didn't know. The crystalline ship's next communication comes with an emotional resonance that transcends language, something between alarm and pity. Then humans have made grave error. Wave approaches. Extinction imminent. Omega Line last defense point. After line falls, nothing stands between wave and human worlds. Ilara's hands shake as she accesses the long-range sensors, directing them past the collective ships toward the emptiness beyond. At first, she sees nothing. Then, adjusting for quantum distortions, a pattern emerges. Not darkness, but an absence, a void where stars should be, moving inexorably toward the Omega Line. How long? She transmits. The collective's answer is precise and terrifying. Wave reaches Omega Line in 14 standard days. Ilara's emergency transmission to Earth Command includes everything. First contact with the collective, sensor data of the approaching extinction wave, and desperate pleas to reinforce the Omega Line. The response crushes her remaining hope. Commander Voss is exhibiting clear signs of isolation psychosis. Retrieval team dispatched to secure both the commander and Sentinel station Omega 9. All further communications from this station are to be disregarded as compromised. With her access to Earth's defense network revoked, Ilara turns to the collective ship hovering alongside her station. They won't listen, she explains. We're on our own. The alien vessel reconfigures itself, extruding a crystalline bridge to Omega 9's airlock. The collective representative who crosses this bridge appears humanoid, but moves with fluid grace that betrays its non-human origin. Together, they access Omega 9's maintenance systems, reactivating long-dormant defensive capabilities built into the station that even Ilara didn't know existed. As they work, the station's sensors detect the approaching retrieval vessel from Earth alongside the first tendrils of the extinction wave, a cloud of glittering particles that disintegrates everything it touches at the molecular level. Ilara must now prepare to either convince her would-be rescuers of the threat or defend the line against both the wave and her own people. Psychosis, Ilara whispers, the word bitter on her tongue as she raids Earth Command's response for the third time. 3 years I've maintained this post without incident, and now they decide I'm unstable. She pushes away from the communications console, crossing to the observation deck where the collective's massive crystalline ship hovers in silent majesty. Its translucent surfaces capture and refract starlight in patterns too complex to be random. Computer, how long until the retrieval team arrives? Estimated arrival of vessel Dauntless, 38 hours, 17 minutes. Less than 2 days to prepare. And approximately 12 days before the first tendrils of the extinction wave reach the Omega Line. A soft chime indicates incoming communication from the collective. Their message materializes as text across Ilara's neural implant, the standard military interface now repurposed for alien communication. Your leaders reject warning. Yes, Ilara responds aloud, knowing the collective sensors can detect her voice. They think I'm suffering from a psychological breakdown. They're sending a team to remove me from the station. The crystalline ship shifts, segments realigning into a new configuration. Light pulses through its structure in rhythmic waves. Time critical. Cannot wait for human acceptance. Must prepare defenses now. Ilara's laugh holds no humor. What defenses? I'm one person on an outdated station. The rest of the Omega Line is automated and running on minimal power. Omega Line contains more than humans know. The message gives Ilara pause. What do you mean? Instead of answering directly, the collective ship extends a crystalline structure toward Omega-9's primary airlock, a bridge of interlocking geometric shapes that solidifies into a translucent pathway. Ilara hesitates only briefly before donning her EVA suit. The station's regulations strictly prohibit unauthorized docking with alien vessels, but given Earth Command's response, regulations seem less important than survival. The crystalline bridge feels solid beneath her magnetic boots despite its appearance of fragility. Inside the collective ship, the environment shifts constantly, spaces forming and reforming as she progresses deeper. Finally, she enters a chamber where the crystals arrange themselves into a roughly humanoid form. The being stands nearly 2 meters tall, vaguely human in proportion, but composed entirely of interlocking crystalline segments that pulse with inner light. When it speaks, the sound bypasses her ears entirely, resonating directly through her neural implant. We have studied Omega Line since its construction. Your ancestors built more than they revealed. The crystalline figure extends what might be a hand, interfaces briefly with Ilara's suit computer, and uploads schematics of Omega-9 that she's never seen before. Hidden systems, dormant weapons, emergency protocols, accessible only in extinction-level scenarios. Ilara studies the schematics with growing amazement. These weren't in any official documentation. How did you? We observed construction. Some who designed Omega Line suspected threats like Wave might exist, created contingencies their governments chose not to acknowledge. Back aboard Omega-9, Ilara follows the collective representative to maintenance sections she barely noticed in 3 years of command. Behind innocuous panels and beneath standard systems lie hidden interfaces, advanced weapons platforms, and quantum communication arrays designed to operate independently of Earth's network. As they work to reactivate these systems, Omega-9's long-range sensors detect 2 approaching objects, the Dauntless on its retrieval mission, and beyond it, just visible at maximum range, the leading edge of the extinction wave. Ilara stares at the dual threats on her display, calculating options. Earth won't believe her warnings. The retrieval team will attempt to remove her by force if necessary. And behind them comes a threat that could end humanity entirely. We have 12 days, she tells the collective representative, and only one chance to convince my people of the truth. Admiral Chen steps onto Omega-9's command deck with his sidearm drawn, security team flanking him. Ilara Voss, you are relieved of command under suspicion of mental instability and potential alien collusion. His words die in his throat as he sees the collective representative and the tactical display showing the approaching wave. Chen, once Ilara's mentor before politics drove them apart, holsters his weapon with trembling hands. My God, you were telling the truth. Within hours, Chen's retrieval mission transforms into the core of a desperate defense force. The Admiral defies direct orders, using his command codes to reactivate the dormant Sentinel stations along the Omega Line. The collective shares their advanced shield technology, while Chen's engineers adapt human weapon systems to target the wave's coherence patterns. Ilara becomes the bridge between species, translating the collective's perfect but rigid battle strategies into the kind of adaptive, unpredictable tactics that humans excel at. Earth Command brands them all traitors, cutting off support and threatening court-martial. As the first tendrils of the extinction wave reach their perimeter, Chen places his hand on Ilara's shoulder. I should have trusted you 3 years ago, when you warned them about the vulnerabilities in the line. Make me believe we can win this impossible fight. The station shudders as the wave makes first contact with their shields, and the battle that will determine humanity's survival begins with a skeleton crew, alien allies, and obsolete technology against a force that has consumed entire civilizations. The Dauntless hangs in space alongside Omega-9, its sleek military lines contrasting with the station's utilitarian design and the crystalline geometry of the collective vessel. On the command deck, Admiral Chen's security team maintains a wary distance from the collective representative, their weapons lowered but not holstered. You understand what this means, Chen, Ilara says, gesturing to the tactical display where the extinction wave's advance is clearly visible. Earth Command will consider this mutiny. Chen's weathered face shows the weight of his decision. At 57, with 30 years of distinguished service, he has everything to lose. I've seen enough to know when bureaucracy becomes suicide, he replies, studying the sensor readings. How long before the wave reaches us? Approximately 11 days at current velocity, but its forward elements will make contact with our outer sensor grid in less than 48 hours. The collective representative shifts, crystal facets realigning to create what might be interpreted as a gesture of urgency. Its communication resonates through their neural implants. Time diminishes. Must activate all Omega Line defenses. Chen nods grimly. Lieutenant Park, transmit my authentication codes to all Sentinel stations along the line. Full activation protocol. The young officer looks uncertain. Sir, that would require overriding Earth Command's standing orders. Consider it done, Chen replies firmly. Log my personal authorization. I take full responsibility. Throughout the Omega Line, 17 long-dormant stations begin powering up their systems. Lights flicker on in empty corridors. Weapon platforms emerge from hidden compartments. Defense shields shimmer into existence, forming a barrier that stretches across light-years of space. In Omega 9's engineering section, Chen's technical team works alongside collective entities, integrating alien shield technology with human weapon systems. The collaboration is awkward at first. Human engineers frustrated by the collective's perfect but inflexible approach, the crystalline beings confused by humanity's chaotic but innovative methods. Ilara moves between them, translating concepts and mediating disputes. Her years alone on the frontier have prepared her for this unique role, understanding both human improvisation and alien precision. The collective designs systems with perfect efficiency, she explains to Chen's chief engineer, but they struggle with adaptive responses. Show them how we can introduce controlled chaos into the defensive grid. Meanwhile, Chen establishes communication with the captains of 3 patrol vessels within range of the Omega Line. 2 immediately pledge their support. The third hesitates, citing regulations. Captain Reynolds, Chen says, his voice level but intense. In 11 days, regulations won't matter. Nothing will matter if we fail here. Reynolds' reluctant agreement brings their total force to 4 ships, 1 station with a skeleton crew, and the collective vessels, against an enemy that has consumed entire civilizations. The first transmission from Earth Command arrives precisely as expected. All personnel involved are declared in violation of direct orders, stripped of rank, and scheduled for court-martial upon return. All resources and assistance are withdrawn. Chen reads the message aloud to the assembled crew, then deletes it without comment. No one objects. As final preparations are made, Chen finds Ilara in the observation deck, watching the distant shimmer that marks the wave's approach. I've spent my career following orders, he says quietly, even when those orders meant retreating from the very purpose of the Omega Line. Ilara nods, understanding the admission for what it is. You are following the trajectory of our entire civilization, Admiral. Turning inward, forgetting why we came to the stars in the first place. The station trembles slightly as the wave's leading elements make first contact with their outer sensor grid. Alert signals flash across their neural implants. It's beginning, Ilara says. Chen's hand finds her shoulder, a gesture of both apology and resolve. Show me how we win this impossible fight, Commander. Admiral Chen's flagship, the Aurora, lists heavily to starboard, its hull partially dissolved by the wave's molecular disruptors. Across the tactical display, 3 Sentinel stations have already fallen, their matter converted to expand the wave's mass. The collective ships move in perfect geometric formations, their crystalline structures fracturing and regenerating as they absorb damage. They're adapting to our attack patterns, Ilara shouts over the command channel as Omega 9 rocks from a direct hit. We need more chaos in our approach. Chen's grim face fills her viewport. I'm reading critical failures in the Aurora's containment field. We can't hold position much longer. Before Ilara can respond, he cuts the transmission. Moments later, the Aurora accelerates directly into the densest node of the wave, its reactor detonating in a blinding flash that temporarily disrupts the enemy's cohesion. Ilara has no time to mourn as a wave tendril breaches Omega-9's lower decks. Fighting through the station's disintegrating corridors, she reaches the escape pod just as the command center collapses. Her pod is caught in the wave's pull when a collective ship swoops in, encasing her vessel in a crystalline shield. Aboard their ship, as medical nanites repair her radiation burns and shrapnel wounds, the collective shares a devastating truth. They've encountered other species before, but none with humanity's particular evolutionary advantage. Most intelligent species either evolve toward perfect collective action like themselves, sacrificing individual initiative, or toward perfect individuality, losing cohesive response. Humans exist in a rare middle state, capable of both synchronized cooperation and spontaneous individual action. This is why we sought your species, they explain as Ilara watches the wave consume another station. This balance you maintain, it is precisely what's needed to defeat the wave. The question is whether enough of you remain to implement such a strategy before we're overwhelmed. Ilara watches through a crystalline viewport as Omega-9, her home for 3 years, dissolves into the wave's advancing front. The station that had felt so confining now represents another devastating loss. A display shows the defensive line collapsing at multiple points, the wave's tendrils probing through gaps, testing and adapting to each countermeasure. Admiral Chen, she whispers, the sacrifice replaying in her mind. The Aurora's desperate plunge into the wave had bought them precious hours, disrupting the enemy's coherence pattern long enough for remaining forces to regroup. But at what cost? The collective entity beside her shifts, its crystalline form reconfiguring to better interface with her neural implant. The alien consciousness flows partially into her mind, not invasive, but present like a whispered conversation. Human sacrifice pattern inefficient but effective, the collective observes. Unpredictable action creates temporary advantage. That wasn't a tactical decision. Ilara responds, her voice hoarse. That was Chen choosing to die so others might live. The concept seems to puzzle the collective. Individual choice to terminate for group benefit. This is the human advantage we observed. A holographic display materializes, showing previous encounters between the collective and other species. Ilara sees crystalline beings similar to her allies, but with subtle variations in structure. Then another species, gaseous entities contained in engineered shells, and another, massive colonial organisms sharing a distributed neural network. All approached problems similarly, the collective explains. Perfect coordination, unified response, all consumed by wave. The display shifts, showing human military history, chaotic, improvised battles where individual soldiers made crucial decisions that changed outcomes against overwhelming odds. Your species succeeds where others fail because you balance. One mind can choose for itself while remaining part of whole, individual and collective simultaneously. Medical nanites finish repairing Ilara's injuries as she studies the tactical situation. The remaining human ships have formed irregular patterns, their movements deliberately erratic to confuse the wave's adaptive algorithms. The collective vessels, meanwhile, maintain perfect formation, providing stable defensive platforms. We're complementary, Ilara realizes. Your perfect coordination with our unpredictability. The collective ripples in what might be agreement. Correct. But current approach insufficient. Wave too massive. Adapts too quickly. Lieutenant Park's voice comes through the emergency channel, now commanding the destroyer Intrepid following the Aurora's loss. Commander Voss, we can't maintain position. 2 more stations have fallen. We need to retreat while we still can. Ilara studies the wave's pattern, noting how it flows around obstacles, constantly probing for weaknesses. An idea forms, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but with a chance of success where conventional tactics have failed. "Park. Hold position," she orders. "I need to speak with all remaining ship commanders and collective coordinators immediately." As the communication channel opens, Ilara looks at the dissolving remains of Omega-9 one last time. Chen's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. The wave had never encountered humanity's unique balance before, and that would be its undoing. "I have a plan," she tells the assembled commanders, "but it requires something neither humans nor the collective have been willing to try alone." Blood trickles down Ilara's temple as she stands before the combined human collective war council aboard the crystalline flagship. Their defensive line is collapsing faster than they can adapt. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," she says, fingers tracing a pattern through the holographic display of the wave. "We can't outfight it because it learns too quickly. But what if we deliberately let it break through?" The collective representatives pulse with alarm while the human officers erupt in protest. Ilara silences them by slamming her fist through the hologram. "Let it break through at a single point, then collapse our forces behind it, cutting off a segment from the main body." The plan passes by a narrow margin, with Chen's former officers trusting Ilara despite their reservations. The collective provides a ship modified with experimental phase technology that can briefly exist out of sync with normal spacetime. Ilara leads a strike team into the heart of the main wave as the isolated segment is bombarded with constantly changing attack patterns, preventing it from establishing stable countermeasures. Deep within the wave, they discover its horrifying origin. Not a natural phenomenon, but an ancient weapon system created by a long-extinct species, programmed to eliminate all potential threats and continuing its mission long after its creators perished. At its center pulses a quantum processor maintaining the wave's intelligence and adaptability. "We can't destroy it conventionally," Ilara realizes, watching her phase suit's integrity failing as the wave tests different methods to penetrate it. Drawing on her years as a Sentinel commander watching for threats that never came, she makes a decision that contradicts all military doctrine. Instead of attacking the processor, she connects to it, uploading a new directive that transforms the wave's fundamental purpose from destruction to protection. "A trap within a trap," Lieutenant Park says slowly, considering Ilara's plan. "We deliberately create a weakness in our line, allowing a portion of the wave through. Then we close the gap behind it." Ilara continues, isolating that segment from the main body. Without connection to the central intelligence, the isolated portion will be more vulnerable. The collective representatives pulse with rapid light patterns, their equivalent of intense discussion. Finally, their primary communicator interfaces with the shared neural network. Strategy contains excessive risk. Probability of failure, 73%. "And what's our probability of success if we continue our current approach?" Ilara challenges, the crystalline being dimmed slightly. Current strategy. Probability of failure 97%. The human officers exchange grim looks. Park speaks for them all. "I'll take those odds." Implementation begins immediately. The remaining human ships and collective vessels reconfigure their defensive line, deliberately weakening one section while strengthening the surrounding areas. As predicted, the wave concentrates its assault on the apparent vulnerability. Aboard the collective's flagship, Ilara dons an experimental phase suit, crystalline technology adapted to human physiology. The suit shimmers around her body, constantly shifting between solid matter and energy states. "This will allow temporary existence outside normal spacetime," explains the collective engineer. "Wave cannot attack what it cannot fully detect." A small strike team forms around her, 3 human specialists and 2 collective entities, all equipped with phase technology. Their mission: penetrate the main wave body while the diversionary action unfolds. "Remember," Ilara briefs them, "we're not looking to attack. We're looking to understand. Find its central processing node, learn its operating parameters, and identify vulnerabilities." As the wave surges through the deliberate gap in their defenses, the remaining forces execute a perfect pincer movement, cutting off a significant portion from the main body. Immediately, the isolated segment shows signs of disorientation, its attacks becoming more predictable. Meanwhile, Ilara's strike team enters the heart of the main wave, their phase technology rendering them partially out of sync with normal space. The experience is disorienting. Reality seems to flicker around them as they exist simultaneously in multiple states. What they find inside defies expectation. The wave isn't chaotic destruction, but perfectly ordered annihilation. A system of nanoscopic machines working with terrifying efficiency to break down all matter they encounter and repurpose it. At the center floats a structure unlike the surrounding wave, an ancient quantum processor of alien design, protected by layers of specialized defenses. As they observe, Ilara realizes the horrible truth. It's a weapon, she whispers through the team's communication channel. A doomsday device created by some long-dead civilization, programmed to eliminate all potential threats. But its creators are gone, adds Park. This thing is just following its programming, continuing a war that ended millennia ago. Ilara studies the quantum processor, noting how it sends continuous update signals throughout the wave's mass. Her phase suit flickers, integrity dropping as the wave tests different methods to detect and neutralize them. We can't destroy it conventionally, she realizes. Even with our phase technology, any attack would be detected and countered before we could succeed. Ilara makes a decision that contradicts every military strategy she's ever learned. Instead of attacking, she moves closer to the processor, extending her neural interface toward its communication array. "Commander, what are you doing?" Park demands. "Something neither human nor collective would consider," she responds. "I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to reprogram it." Using her neural implant and the phase suit's interface capabilities, Ilara establishes a connection with the ancient processor. Immediately, her mind floods with alien code, patterns of thought so foreign they threaten to overwhelm her consciousness. Drawing on her years as a Sentinel, watching for threats that never materialized, Ilara focuses on one simple directive: protection instead of destruction. Where the original programming sought to eliminate all potential threats, she introduces a new primary parameter: preserve and defend intelligent life. As the new directive uploads, the wave around them begins to change. Sunrise over Earth has never looked so beautiful to Ilara as she stands at the observation deck of the newly commissioned Harmony Station, the first joint human collective installation built at the former breach point of the Omega Line. 6 months have passed since the reprogrammed extinction wave halted its advance and began to dissipate. Earth Command's belated reinforcement fleet arrived to find the battle already won through impossible cooperation. The wave's repurposed nanotechnology now forms the backbone of a revolutionary defense and construction system extending throughout the former conflict zone. Admiral Chen's sacrifice has been commemorated by naming the new defense doctrine after him. The Chen maneuver, focused on adaptability over rigid response. The collective has established permanent embassies on human worlds, their crystalline architecture becoming a familiar sight as cultural exchange flourishes. Ilara touches the neural interface at her temple, a gift from the collective that allows her to communicate directly with their consciousness when needed. As commander of the new Sentinel initiative, she oversees not a defensive perimeter, but an expanding network of cooperation and exploration. 3 more species have made contact since the wave's defeat, drawn by news of the Alliance. The frontier that humanity had abandoned has become the center of a new interspecies civilization. A young ensign approaches with a data tablet. "Commander, we've detected unusual energy signatures beyond the former wave territory. Unknown origin, possibly artificial." Ilara smiles, thinking of how fear of the unknown once drove humanity to retreat from the stars. "Prepare a first contact team," she orders. Human and collective specialists together. The last Sentinel of the old Omega Line has become the first explorer of a new era, proving that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy was neither technology nor military might, but our unique balance between standing alone and working together. a lesson now spreading across the stars. Ilara adjusts her dress uniform, still uncomfortable with the Admiralty insignia at her collar. The promotion had come with a formal apology from Earth Command. Too little, too late for the lives lost defending the Omega Line, but a necessary acknowledgement of their failure and her vindication. Harmony Station hums with activity around her. Human technicians working alongside collective entities, their once alien collaboration now routine. Through the viewport, construction drones swarm around the framework of another installation, their work coordinated by the repurposed wave technology that once threatened to destroy them all. The liaison assembly begins in 10 minutes. Admiral, her aide reminds her. Ilara nods, taking a final moment to appreciate the view. Earth gleams in the distance, no longer isolated by choice but connected to a network of allies. The reprogrammed wave nanites had not only halted their destruction but reversed it, becoming instruments of creation under their new directive to protect life. The assembly chamber fills with representatives from a dozen worlds, humans in their varied uniforms, collective entities in their crystalline forms, and emissaries from 3 recently contacted species drawn to the Alliance by news of the wave's defeat. Ilara takes her position at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. 6 months ago, we faced extinction, she begins, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. Not just humanity, but all independent life in this sector of the galaxy. We survived not through superior firepower or technology, but through something more fundamental, the understanding that our differences can become our strengths. The collective primary, a crystalline entity twice her height, pulses in agreement. Their shared neural connection allows Ilara to sense its thoughts. Perfect precision balanced with newfound appreciation for human adaptability. Admiral Chen gave his life implementing a strategy that neither humans alone nor the collective alone would have conceived, she continues. His sacrifice taught us that sometimes the greatest defense comes not from standing apart, but from coming together. The memorial display activates, showing Chen's image alongside the schematics of the maneuver named in his honor, a tactical approach that deliberately introduces controlled chaos into perfectly ordered systems. The Chen Doctrine had already transformed Earth's defensive strategies, replacing rigid protocols with adaptive, unpredictable responses. After the ceremony, Ilara returns to her office where Lieutenant Park, now Captain Park of the exploration vessel Horizon, waits with the latest reports. The wave nanites have completed the reconstruction of Sentinel Station Omega-7, Park informs her. And the collective has shared their phase technology with our engineering course. Ilara studies the star charts where once empty regions now pulse with activity. The Omega Line, built as humanity's last defense, has become the foundation of something far greater, an interspecies collaborative network extending into regions of space humans had never dared explore alone. The neural interface at her temple tingles slightly as the collective sends a private communication. New anomaly detected. Pattern suggests artificial origin, similar to ancient signals predating wave. Ilara feels a familiar thrill, not fear of the unknown, but anticipation of discovery. The young ensign enters with confirmation, presenting a data tablet showing energy signatures unlike anything in their database. Your orders, Admiral, the ensign asks. Ilara remembers standing alone on Omega-9 3 years ago, watching the darkness for threats while humanity retreated into itself. Now she commands an alliance built on the understanding that isolation is the true path to extinction. Prepare a first contact team, she orders, human and collective specialists together. As the ensign leaves to implement her orders, Ilara turns back to the viewport where construction continues on the new frontier stations. The last sentinel of the old defensive line has become something new, a bridge between species, between isolation and cooperation, between fear and discovery. Humanity's greatest strength had proven to be neither our technology nor our tenacity, but our unique evolutionary position, balanced perfectly between individual initiative and collective action. It was a lesson now spreading across the stars, carried by the alliance that grew from a lone commander's refusal to abandon her post. The Sentinel's watch continues, not in isolation, but in partnership.